Welcome back. Last time we concluded our initial overview of the dimension of Iman, and now we're ready to turn to our introduction to the practical dimension of Islam. We need to cover a lot of ground, so this presentation will be longer than usual, and I'll try to speak a little faster to help compensate. Let me begin by saying that in order to understand the meaning of this dimension and the injunctions which were promulgated through the Hadith of Gabriel, namely, to bear witness that there is no God but God, and that Muhammad is God's messenger, which is a doctrinal statement we've already discussed, and perform the ritual prayers, pay the alms tax, fast during Ramadan, and make the pilgrimage to the house in Mecca if you're able to go there. These are called the practical pillars of Islam. And I must say a word about Islamic anthropology, that is, how Islam conceives the human being anthropos in order to understand them. What is the conception of man? In traditional Christian theology, man is a fallen being subject to original sin, and the role of religion, specifically Christianity, is to heal the wound within the effect of the fall, at least virtually if not actually. Now, in Islam, that is not the case. There's no original sin. But as you've read, there is the fall, what in Arabic is called hubut. We have fallen from what we were perfectly. But the great sin in Islam is not the original sin, as understood in Christianity, but of forgetfulness of God, which in Arabic is called ghafla. That is, Islam sees our basic infirmity, imperfection, what theologically is called sin, is that we forget God. In a sense, we've gained a kind of second nature through the fall, which is the nature of forgetfulness. And according to Islam, the function of religion is to bring about remembrance, what in Arabic is called dhikr. The Quran has as one of its names dhikrullah, the remembrance of God. All the rites of Islam, that is R-I-T-E-S, have only one goal, and that is the remembrance of God. That's what binds the different Islamic rites together. These few words are absolutely essential for the understanding of Homo Islamicus, that is, how Islam envisages our being human. And these few words underline everything that we'll be talking about during the next few presentations. Now, of all the different pillars of the religion, the most important, other than the testimony of faith itself, is the canonical prayers called Salat. In Arabic, not every prayer is Salat because there is also individual prayer called Dua. In all religions, some people who are not even completely religious will occasionally say a prayer. And you can pray to God in the form of Dua in your own mother tongue. The form of the prayer is whatever you want to discuss with God. But the Salat, the Islamic canonical prayer, can only be said in Arabic. It's a divine form into which the soul fits itself, unlike the individual prayer, which is generated by the soul. Now, no religion is as stringent as Islam about the daily prayers. First of all, they're not only for a particular class of people. For example, in Hinduism, the Brahmins have special prayers which they perform 2 hours every morning, but only the Brahmins do it, whereas the other castes don't have to. But the Muslim prayers are for all Muslim men and women from the age of puberty unto death. Even illness doesn't destroy the obligation of saying the prayers as long as one is conscious. The only condition under which one should not say the prayer is if one is not in one's ordinary state of consciousness, one is drunk, unconscious, or mentally ill, as well as certain other conditions discussed in the readings. So the canonical prayer is an incredible institution to be imposed upon a whole humanity. Now, I want to say something about the time, space, and conditions for the canonical prayers. What the Salat do is punctuate our life by moments of the remembrance of God. They're like medicine against ghafla, against forgetfulness. In the same way that if you have a bad stomach and the doctor says, take this pill 3 times a day before each meal, you don't take divine medicine just once. It's repeated over and over again. So the 5 times of the prayers punctuate our daily existence, and they're all determined cosmically by the movement of the sun, not conventionally by watches, which we use only as a convenience, as discussed in our readings. So this is the time element. What about the space element? There's a saying of the prophet according to which God says to him, "Verily we have placed for thee the earth as a mosque." The word mosque comes from the Spanish mezquita, which comes from the Arabic masjid. And the word masjid is derived from sujud, meaning prostration, the last movement of the canonical prayer in which one puts one's forehead on the ground. So mosque means a place of prostration. And in this saying of the prophet, the whole earth is actually the place of prostration, the masjid. In earlier Islamic history, when most Muslims were either nomads or lived in small villages, the house of worship was nature. In fact, the Islamic mosque was created once human beings moved out of nature to live in sedentary urban environments. So the mosque, in a sense, is bringing God's nature to the middle of the city. One doesn't have to say one's prayers in a mosque. One can say one's prayers at home or in a place of work or anywhere else, although one has to have permission to pray there, and it must be ritually clean. So the place of the prayers is not based upon a particular building or a sacred site or an altar as you have in Hinduism or Christianity, for example. Now there's another final point about space that you all know, and that is that the prayers in Islam are all directed towards Mecca, the most sacred city in the Islamic world, where the Kaaba is located. In the daily prayers, each Muslim, both male and female, stand without any intermediary before God. In a sense, the priestly function is divided in Islam among all Muslim men and women. In certain religions, the function of being able to perform the sacred rites can only be done after certain ceremonies and initiations into the priestly class. For example, in Christianity, not every Christian can celebrate Mass. In the Catholic Church and most Protestant denominations, you have to be a priest or a minister. A pious Christian cannot just get up and start celebrating Mass. In Islam, this function is actually divided among all people. Now, the fact that someone stands in front of a group and leads the canonical prayer doesn't mean that he has a priestly function, whether it's 2 or 3 people or the Friday congregational prayer. It's just that he's a pious person, or his Arabic is good, or he delivers the Friday sermon, or people love him. Oftentimes, therefore, people rotate. Finally, there are other congregational prayers that Muslims say after an eclipse, earthquake, or drought, for example, as discussed in the readings. This concludes our discussion of Salat, and next time we'll turn to the pillars of fasting and paying the alms tax.